Hi, this video is an introduction to whole genome sequencing, and we will be discussing some essential information that will be relevant to your upcoming appointment here at Weill Cornell Genetics. Meet our team of geneticists or genetics doctors. You will likely be interacting with one of them during your visit. And meet our team of genetic counselors, one of whom will be interacting with you during our visit and will walk you through the process of genetic testing. This video will cover some information that will be relevant to your upcoming appointment and hopefully answer some of your questions beforehand. We will discuss what whole genome sequencing is, why we use it, how it works, and what kind of results we can expect from it. We will also go over some limitations of this test and provide some important takeaway points for your upcoming visit. Before discussing the use of genetic testing, here's a very quick overview of how our genes work. Inside every cell of our body, we have DNA. DNA is the information that our body uses to make us who we are. Zooming into DNA, we can see that there are some letters, and these letters are grouped into genes. Certain genes are responsible for the development of things like our heart, our eyes, our hair color, and so on. However, if there is a variation or a change in these letters, it can sometimes affect someone's health. For example, here we see a variation in this patient's DNA because the letters are different. It is common for people to have variations, and most of these variants are what makes us unique and are harmless. To understand these variations, we often use parent samples to see if this change was passed down from one parent or the other. This can help the lab interpret the patient's results, such as whether a variation is a family trait or whether we are seeing something new in this patient. We also understand that not all biological parents may be present or willing to provide their samples. Testing can still be done without samples from biological parents. And in this example, we see that the patient did not inherit this variation from their parents, so it is something new that occurred in this patient's DNA. Now, what is whole genome sequencing? It's the process of reading all your DNA to see if there are any genetic variations that may be associated with any genetic diseases. And why do we use whole genome sequencing? It's the most comprehensive genetic test we have right now that can help us look for if there is a genetic cause for your symptoms. For whole genome sequencing, we will draw blood from the patient and their parents if both are available to test. This is a timeline of what you can expect after you arrive for your visit with us. First, you will meet with us to review the consent process for whole genome sequencing. If you choose to continue with testing, we will collect the necessary samples. Next, we will send the samples to the lab for analysis. It will take around 3 months for these results to return. And lastly, once we have the results, we will call you and discuss what the next steps are in the process.
There are a few different results that can come back with whole genome sequencing. The first result is a positive result. This means that a variant or change was seen in the DNA that can explain the symptoms a patient is experiencing. This can provide families with a better understanding of their child's health and help with ongoing care and management. Some patients also find support from other families affected by a similar DNA change. The second result is a negative result. This means the testing was unable to find a variant in the DNA that can explain the symptoms in a patient. This may be because the features we are seeing do not have a single genetic cause, or because a person has a change in their DNA that this testing cannot identify. Though this is an accurate and comprehensive test, we know that genetics is rapidly evolving, and further genetic testing may be recommended in the future. The third result is a variant of uncertain significance, also known as a VUS for short. This means that the lab did find a variant in the DNA, but it is uncertain whether this change can explain symptoms or if the change is simply a harmless variation that makes us different from one another. The lab does not have enough information and needs more time for research. With these results, we recommend following up with our office periodically to check if the variant has been reclassified to a positive or negative result. In the meantime, we typically do not recommend changes to medical care based on an uncertain result. Additional results may come back that are unrelated to the presenting symptoms. The first are known as unexpected results. As this test uses both parent samples for analysis, the testing can reveal if parents are related to one another. It can also determine if a submitted sample from a parent is not biologically related to the patient's sample. The second set of results are called the American College of Medical Genetics, or ACMG for short, secondary findings. The ACMG determined that there are several genetic conditions for which a patient could be treated or monitored before symptoms begin. These genetic conditions are usually unrelated to the reason the patient is having this testing, but can be detected by whole genome sequencing. Some examples include heritable forms of cancer and heart disease. You can choose not to have these results reported, and we will discuss this option further at your visit. Now, we will move on to limitations and other considerations. Whole genome sequencing is an exceptional test, but it cannot detect all genetic variants, and it cannot predict everything about your health. Some patients ask if there are any risks of having genetic testing, such as whether they might experience discrimination based on their genetic test results. It's important to know that there is a federal law known as the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, or GINA, which provides protection against genetic discrimination from employers and health insurance companies. However, the law does not provide protection when it comes to obtaining life insurance, disability insurance, long-term care insurance, and employment at organizations with fewer than 15 employees. Additionally, GINA's employment protections do not extend to U.S. military service members. Other considerations are the effect on your mental health with genetic testing. Some people experience stress, anxiety, and guilt during this process. Also, you can allow the lab to use your de-identified genetic information for research, if you wish. We would like to emphasize that genetic testing is optional and your choice. We understand that this is a lot of information, and we're here to help. Please reach out if you have any questions before or after meeting with us. The best way to contact us is here on this slide.
That concludes the presentation. We thank you for taking the time to learn about whole genome sequencing, and we'd like to give a special thanks to Sarah Zorin at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and Michelle Primiano at Weill Cornell Medicine for their contributions to this presentation.